Good. You folks that's down there, if y'all want to come up here, we got some chairs that are empty if you want to. If you don't want to go down there, I understand, because I ain't took a bath about 3 days. So it'll be pretty good either way. Thank y'all for coming out on a very, to me, being from Southwest Oklahoma, humid day. We don't have much humility where I come from, so when we come up here, always pray every day, God, let it cool off. I would rather cook in 19 below than I had 89 with humidity, I promise you, every day. I can stay warm by that old stove, but you can't cool off sometimes. Now, bread in this weather is totally different also. There's 3 things that affect the way bread cooks and rises, and that is wind, humidity, and elevation. But humidity will also choke a fire when you're just using coals. It will suppress it to where they're not as hot. So it's harder to brown something on a day like today if you don't have a really good hardy coal to cook with. I don't know if some of y'all might have seen me over there fanning the fire a while ago, trying to get just a little more heat to maybe get a little brown on them biscuits. But something you can always do too is take you a stick of butter when they're nearly done on top, rub on top, and it'll make them brown a little quicker, but you're still going to have to fan them when it is this humid or you're at elevation. How I would dearly love some Southwest Oklahoma breeze. You know, a calm day for us is 15 to 20 miles an hour. I don't even see a leaf moving up here. I was telling somebody back over here, cows starved to death up here looking for a windmill. I mean, they just ain't gonna pump no water. I'm glad y'all probably got submersibles or something like that. Angel Flake biscuits. They're pretty special to me because my mother and grandmother would fix them twice a year, Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's the only time we ever had them. My mother always told me, and we'll get into it a little bit more, cook what you love, love what you cook. And my mother was one of them. We never had much, but she could take something that was nearly nothing and make it into a whole bunch that would feed us all.
Train time.
Except the train. I ain't never going to feed them guys on that train. And it would fill your belly, but it would also bless your soul. When we gathered around the table, and it's something that I wish America would get back to, and that is gathering around the table.
Amen.
Without a cell phone.
Amen.
Sit down. We're going to wait on him. I can't out-talk him because he's got a louder voice than I do. There we go. She would tell me when we sat down at the table, right before we blessed every meal, she would say, look down there at that table, see them legs around it? I'd say, I see them, Mama. There's 4 of them. She said, no, there's 12. It's not the table legs that hold it up, it's the family that is around it, she would tell me. And every day since then, I never take for granted that I have the opportunity to sit down at a table and eat, even if it's just me and Shannon, the Beagle Dog, and old Frank. So, always be thankful for what you got, even if it's not much, because I guarantee you it can get less if you don't pay attention real quick.
Yeah.
So let's make some Angel Flake biscuits. First of all, we're going to put about 3 or 4 tablespoons of warm water and a package of yeast, and you can see it's sort of bubbled up here, trying to do its thing. We're going to dump it in there because I'll guarantee you it is what you call active. We're going to let it sit right there till I can get some of this buttermilk. How many buttermilk fans do we have out there? My mother would take buttermilk and drink it right out of the carton and call it good. You do that, ma'am? Do you do it too, brother? No. She thought it was some of the best thing ever. Now, I love to cook with it. I love to dip meat in it. I love a chocolate cake that's got it in it. But it does make a good biscuit too. And we're going to add about 1.5 cups, which is pretty close to that much. And as warm as it is, pardon me while I put this up. Now, yeast and starter, pardon me, I was back on sourdough. Yeast and sugar always go together well because sugar help kickstart the yeast. We're looking for about 1/4 cup, which is about that much. We're going to stir this really well till we can make sure that that little dab of yeast, which was already dissolved, and that cold buttermilk become friends. I've seen my mother at times when she made these warm the buttermilk up. She'd warm it up a little, she'd take a drink of it, she said, "Oh, you ought to try that." And I said, "No, Mama, I'll pass. I'll just eat the biscuit." But if you'll let that warm water and that cold buttermilk with that yeast and a little sugar set there 4 or 5 minutes, everything will adjust itself and it will become to get comfortable with each other. So we're going to give it a little time. And while it's doing that, this is the 23rd day of September, isn't it? Is that right? This is a pretty special day to me. And I have a fellow whose birthday is today. And I wrote this for him, long time ago, because I thought he needed it. I got to figure out how it starts now, Shan. Horseshoes. He was covered all with sweat as I tied my old horse there in the shade. He said, "An old horse that'll stand for more than 5 minutes," he said, "there ain't never been one made." He wore an old ragged pair of leggings that had been cut off just below his knees. And his hands were hard, calloused, and his arms were like 2 limbs and hung off a giant oak tree. He said, "You reckon you could hold this old feller? He seems to have a lot of trouble standing still, while you'd think after 45 years of this I'd quit, had enough, got my fill." Well, he let that old horse's leg down and he went to his anvil to shape a shoe. He said, "Sometimes in life we've all got to have a little adjusting, keep us straight, keep us true. Trimming and shoring these old horses," he said, "is sort of like dealing with life. Nobody said it was going to be easy, but if you'll do it with pride and honesty, you can get through the times of trouble and strife." Well, he nailed that shoe on pretty quick. He never missed his aim. He said, "Sometimes in life you've really got to struggle if there's going to be any kind of gain." But now his shirt was salted down, soaked by the summer sun, and it didn't take him long trimming, and my old horse was done. I thanked him for his story, and I paid him for his time, and as I was riding away, I could hear his old anvil ring, making a perfect chime. Well, there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't think of him and his advice, and every time I got a chance, I'd stop and see him, sometimes more than twice. But now the old horses, they ain't lined up no more. His anvil just sits there silent, and his leggings lay empty in the floor. Yeah, sometimes I go to wondering, and it makes me feel sort of sad. But the good Lord needed a farrier, and he got the best of him when he hired my dad. Thank y'all. The leaf is optional in the recipe. You don't have to have it, but it is best to let it sit in there unnoticed until you find it. So we're going to add 1/3 cup of oil. People ask, what kind of oil? This kind today. I think it's some kind of vegetable oil. I've used canola oil, peanut oil, flaxseed oil. It's a little stout, don't try that. I got in a bind in the Texas Panhandle one winter, run out of oil. Don't use Pennzoil, it is not good. Them boys were smoking a little when they rode out of camp that morning. We're going to add 2 teaspoons of salt. Well, really, let's take that back. Let's just do one sort of heaping. Then we're going to add a teaspoon of baking powder, baking soda, which is about that much. And since it's humid, we're going to add a little more. Then we're going to add a tablespoon of baking powder. And it don't never want to shake out just right in my hand. I usually get a half a cup. So we're going to dig in there and we're going to make it a little more than that because of humidity. If you're cooking bread at a high elevation, anybody here from over 4,500 foot tall? Your bread won't rise. Add a little baking soda to your baking powder. It will help it. So I think we got it all in there. Sugar, yeast, buttermilk, baking soda, oil, and baking powder. So we're going to call it good, minus the leaf. And we're going to stir it up till we can't see anything in there that might have a lump or a clump. Now comes the part to where all bread recipes will tell you 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 9 to 10, whatever it might call for flour. Always use the least amount first. You can add flour to something if it's too wet. But if it's too dry, it is a lost cause. Why make a biscuit that takes 68 pounds of gravy to soften it up enough you can chew it? Can we hear an amen out there? That's what I'm talking about. I want to make sure that a biscuit is light, it is fluffy, and it is airy. That is a word, ain't it? Airy? Okay. Sometimes Shannon will tell me I say something, she'll say, I don't think that was a word. I incorporate a lot of words that ain't words most of the time.
That's good.
Now when it comes to this point, I like to seal. That way I'm getting everything in there I know needs to be right. How come did we sift flour so many years ago?
Get the weevils out.
Weevils out. Grandma had a flour box sit down there at the end of the cabinet. Never had a lid on it. Creatures would play in it at night. Some of them would leave their calling card. Look like little brown specks.
Right.
Grandma would make cinnamon rolls on occasion, and she'd leave them in there. For a long time, me and Grandpa thought they was burnt raisins. They got a definite crunch to them. You'll figure it out if you have one. Flour your surface well, and you will see when that dumps out of there, it is pretty wet. Remember, we can add to it the flour, but we cannot take it away. So, when it gets to that point there, a little dab more is sifted. Get them hands sort of covered up. This is different than a sourdough. Y'all have always heard me say on sourdough, we ain't going to knead it, we ain't going to work it. The longer you work it, the drier it becomes. I just want to feel this to make sure you see it's a little tacky. I want it that way, but I don't want it quite so much. I'm going to fold it about 3 times and one more, and I'm going to put it right there and I'm going to call it good. Now, that's still got a lot of moisture in it. You got a bread recipe that you make that you really like, but it's dry and crumbly, and every time you go to try to break the biscuit in half, it's too crumbly. You used to eat a lot of them old baking powder biscuits that Grandma made, and they were so crumbly. And I would ask her when I got older, because you never argue with the cook. I'd say, Grandma, why don't you put some oil in that, it'll help it. She said, didn't call for it. I said, well, yeah, but it might help it. When you get old enough to cook them, you can cook them. That was a mistake, because I went to cooking them the next day. Grandma never did give up after that. She said, you just keep right on cooking, you're doing a good job. So be careful what you wish for or you ask for in life. Sometimes it comes true. Now, the best thing about this little recipe, hi Shan, my love, how are you? You're hot? It is hot in the kitchen. It's this magical thing invented called butter. I do like some butter. Unsalted is what I prefer. Make sure you cover everything well in there. And then make sure you have a biscuit cutter of some form or fashion. And I think we ought to thank our sponsors at this time. Ma'am, would you step up here, because they like it better. One of them's over there, and he likes to hear somebody else call his name out, okay?
I'd like to thank the folks at National Beef.
I'd like to thank the folks at Getty.
I'd like to thank the folks at Getty.
I'd like to thank the folks at Certified Angus Beef.
I'd like to thank the folks at Certified Angus Beef.
And I'd like to thank Happy Hank's Hemorrhoid Cream.
And I'd like to thank Happy Hank's Hemorrhoid Cream.
It'll make your pooper puppy.
It'll make your pooper puffer.
I think she's got a job open, and she may take my place. Now, my grandmother and my mother, more my mother, would use a bigger biscuit cutter. Jen, if we got a big green chili can, this would make this demonstration a little bit better. You can see the desired consistency there is 1730 seconds. You need to have a tape measure and measure it, because if it ain't there, they won't work. Never throw away a tomato paste can or a green chili can. Make sure they got a little flyer on them. My mother would take them at this time and she would say, I love them. She'd put her hand on them, mash them just a tad. Put them over in that butter, like so, and then fold them over one time. And I'd say, Mama, why'd you do that? She said, remember they're angel flakes. She said the two wings have to come together to hold the love that's inside. I always remembered that story from many years ago when I was such a young man. We still make them every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, because it is a tradition at our house. And one thing that we like, because we use these biscuits a lot when we cater, you can make this dough the night before. Put it in the icebox. You can even go ahead and cut out the biscuits if you want to. Let it come to room temperature before you even think about letting them rise, and they're good to go. You can't do that with sourdough. It will be too cold, because refrigeration will kill some sourdough. Any questions on Angel Flake biscuits? Anybody? Y'all are an easy crowd, you are. I like easy. But if you don't have questions, we don't eat. Anybody got a question now? Yes, ma'am. How good do they taste? Well, ma'am, since you asked a question, you're the only one that's going to get to find out. Sugar. They are good.
What page is your cookbook?
Ma'am? Yes, ma'am. What page? Oh, I can't tell you, ma'am. It's about the third recipe in the bread section for breakfast. You gonna buy one? Well, do you know what page it's on? Anybody else got a question?
Is there a sourdough recipe in your book?
Is there a sourdough recipe in the book? Yes, ma'am. Sourdough pie crust, sourdough cinnamon rolls, sourdough pancakes, sourdough biscuits, sourdough starter. There was a question back over here. How long do I cook them? Till they're done. About 30 to 35 minutes, ma'am, probably more closer to 40 in a conventional oven. They will rise up pretty good. Give them time to rise, and then bake them 350, about 40 minutes maybe.
Do you cook them immediately?
You can, but I like to let them rise first. Yes, sir. What kind of pan? This is a 12-inch Dutch oven this morning. If you don't have one and you're going to cook these in the house, do it in a cast iron skillet. Ain't nothing better to cook out of in the world than a piece of cast iron. Now, when you have a little remnant of dough left that you have cut out, don't wad it back up in your hand and break it in a ball and then put it back out there, because it's just going to get tougher. I want all these to be the same. I don't want somebody to reach in there and say, His might have been better than mine. Mine's tough. So let's try to keep them all the same. And if you run out of butter, you're in bad shape. Anybody else got a question? Yes, ma'am.
When's your next cookbook coming?
When is the next cookbook coming out? Well, that is a magical question. We write it what they call what do you call that deal we write first? A proposal, yes. I've just made one of them, and that was to her. And then they send it back to you and say, no, change this, change that, change this. We want it just like the first book, but we want it a little different. I said, how different? Well, you know, different. So right now we're in the different stage. When that's going to happen, I have no earthly idea right at the time, ma'am. Anybody else got a question? Yes, sir.
Go with your biscuits, you got to have coffee. Now, I want to know, do you season your coffee pot like you do your Dutch oven?
A coffee pot, he wants to know, do you season a coffee pot similar to a Dutch oven? A coffee pot is probably the next most important thing to me than a skillet or a Dutch oven. So when I have one that's new, and that gray one there, what used to be gray, I think it's black now, isn't it? Shannon gave it to me not too long ago. It had never made coffee in it. So I fill it full of warm water, set it over on that stove, let it come to warming water, put in 3 handfuls of coffee and a little more because that's a big pot. Let it come to a rolling boil. And let it roll, and let it roll, and let it roll. I'll pull it off, push it back over, boil it some more. I'm going to do that all day long. Might have to add a little water to it, but I'm going to season the inside of that coffee pot. It never sees soap, ever. You'll rinse it out with cold water. I turn it over to dry where nothing's left in there to chance that you might get some mold. And you're ready to go. It is the best coffee in the world because it is boiled coffee, and when you boil coffee, you take the bitter out, the acid out. There's no more heartburn, acid indigestion. I have people say, I can drink your coffee and I don't even have to put nothing in it. I said, I understand. That's why we make it. And heaven forbid if we was to forget the rest of that butter. You can't have too much butter. Now when these cook with that much butter in them, Shan will be the first to tell you, if you cook them slow, you can sort of get that butter to seep up through there. If you cook them fast or a little hot, you'll make a good crispy crust on the bottom because they're actually frying in that butter. I like them both ways, but I sure like them when they're done with a little honey on them or some sorghum or something like that. We'll let them rise till they're about doubled in size. Then we shall cook them little rice. Now, today is also a day, since we have recognized sponsors, Wool Glue, that we will have some type. You want to just look right in that door? And then you have to come right around here. Let me hold your hand because I want you to close your eyes. Get them both laying right there. Now close your eyes. Are your eyes closed? Come right out here. Come on. Step. One more. All right. Hey, don't open them. Take this, rear back, and throw it somewhere. You knocked one eye out. Close
You do it like the bouquet.
Oh, there you go.
Close.
Yeah.
So somebody got a Yeti t-shirt and a Yeti cap. Yeti is a good sponsor of ours, and we do thank them for helping us. But another person that they help out a whole lot is my good friend Stan Hayes. He's from Kansas City. He started Operation Barbecue Relief. Now, him and his little team and a whole bunch of folks went down to Houston with their smokers and grills. The first meal Stan and them turned out, 55,000 plates. So all the coffee donations this month, we send down there to help Stan and his crew. They're in Florida now, right?
Yeah.
So You want a cup of coffee, get one, make a donation. If you don't want no coffee, make a donation anyway. We will appreciate it, won't we, sugar? Any other questions before we get rid of this menagerie? They do look hungry. Recipes in the cookbook, I need to sell 284 of them today to make up for yesterday. And it's hot, the air conditioner's broke, I'd like to fix it. I want you to stick around here, the Farnham family over here, they're going to play us some good music. Be kind to your neighbor, please. God bless you, each and every one, and thank you for stopping by.